Superman in New England? Not sure about that. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, AJ210, and thank you for joining me today. I got plenty of news to go over as it pertains to the sports world. For that, welcome back, everyone. Hope you're having a good day, and welcome back to the podcast. Like I said, I have a bunch of news surrounding the sports world, surrounding talking about the MLB's return, talking about the NBA season return, talking about news about the NFL, talking about some players in the NBA deciding to sit out of the NBA season when it resumes. So that we'll talk about it. So first thing I want to talk about is and also the recap of the fight night the other night, Poirier versus Hooker. So with that, first thing I want to talk about is the elephant in the room. I mean, Cam Newton. Everyone who knows me, I'm a Patriots fan. I'm a big Patriots fan. And when I was working out yesterday on the exercise bike, I saw it on social media and whatnot. Cam Newton, Superman, going to New England. My thoughts, so mixed feelings. Now, I talked about it with some friends I've seen, talked about it with my dad, seeing reviews, seeing people talk about it. I mean, they think it's a good decision. Some Patriots fans think it's a bad decision. For me, my opinion, I would say, so first off, I would believe that the undrafted quarterbacks we selected, I believe Brian Leberke and Jamar, the other guy out of Louisiana Tech, I believe, are definitely going to make the practice squad, I would say. And I would think we would have 3 quarterbacks on the roster going in to 2020 now, being Hoyer, Stidham, and now Cam Newton. Now my thoughts. Who is going to be the starter? My opinion, I think Stidham still has a lot of fans in New England and the locker room. He knows the system, so does Hoyer. Now, Cam Newton, obviously, he's still starter material. Of course, we only paid him a certain amount. Apparently, it's only like 7.5 up to incentives, so it's a low amount, not big quarterback money. So for only 1 year, so the way I think is Jared Stidham and Cam Newton will both compete for the starting job, and the winner for that will be the starter. The loser will be the backup. And if something doesn't happens to the starter, like an injury or the virus, pandemic, something like that, Brian Hoyer, also on the roster, will be the backup. That's my opinion. Now, I still had hopes that we'd be around 500 and we could go anywhere looking from at the schedule from 7-9 to 11-5. That's my opinion. Cam Newton, I said that I would rather have Andy Dalton. Now, here's why. It's not that I think Andy Dalton is better than Cam. It's because Cam's style is he runs, and a big part of his game is running and the deep ball. And Andy Dalton, he's the more natural thrower. Even Joe Flacco, he's a more natural thrower than Cam Newton, despite being a very tall, kind of bigger guy than Andy Dalton. Now, obviously, we'll see about that, but that's my opinion. Hopefully, for the best this season. Sticking with the NFL news, so Trent Williams, the left tackle now of the 49ers that was traded from the Redskins to the 49ers after Joe Staley retired, and when it looked like the 49ers were going to take Tristan Wirfs, or could have, but instead traded the pick with the Bucks and got Javon Kinlaw instead. Apparently, so he wants to be the highest paid left tackle, or I believe the highest paid tackle in the league. And right now, I believe that's Taylor Lewan. Now, apparently, he's in the final year of his contract, and part of restructuring his contract that they cannot put the franchise tag on him next year if they don't reach a long-term deal. So that's kind of tricky if you're a 49ers fan, because you thought you had stability for Staley. I thought maybe they would still get a left tackle, a high-priced left tackle in the draft, whether it's Staley retired or not. But nonetheless, it's almost cracking in a bit for the Niners, or the proverbial Super Bowl hangover is coming in for the Niners, or is at least starting to. Debo's hurt. Richie James hurt. If you don't win the Super Bowl this year, if you're the Niners, you gotta pay Kittle, who wants to be considered, or he wants wide receiver money, and B, Trent Williams, who you traded to be the replacement for Joe Staley, wants to be the highest paid tackle next year, or at least wants to be in the league. Now, with assuming, well, if fans cannot be in or at games in the NFL this year, that the revenue will go down a bunch and possibly veterans will be cut. But we'll see how that pertains to the salary cap. But if you're a Niners fan, you gotta be a little worried with the two big contracts and your injuries. So we'll see. Next up, Antonio Brown was once again in the news. So, two teams that I predicted could use Antonio Brown, the Ravens and the Seahawks, both have had talks about acquiring Antonio Brown. Now, I told on a video, or an episode on my audio version of my podcast a while ago, the best fits, I thought, for Antonio Brown and the Ravens and Seahawks were two of the teams I thought could very well take him. Now, if I had to choose, I would choose the Seahawks over the Ravens because the Ravens, Lamar Jackson is a really young quarterback and you have a young offense. And Antonio Brown he comes with an aura, he comes with a personality. He's a very good wide receiver still, I believe, but you don't want to bring a dissent into a locker room when you have a really young nucleus of a team. Now, if you go to Seattle, yes, you have a couple solid wide receivers in DK Metcalf, who shined last year, and Tyler Lockett, who's really coming to his own as a wide receiver. Now, why the Seahawks over the Ravens? It's simple. Russell Wilson is a seasoned veteran. He's basically a grown-up. He has gotten paid number one quarterback money for all the right reasons. He has lifted that Seahawks organization along with Pete Carroll for a decade, while the Legion of Boom also has been there and Marshawn Lynch. Nonetheless, he has been the one constant, basically, besides Bobby Wagner. Russell Wilson has been the one constant on the offense. He is basically the leader of the Seahawks, and if anyone can help Antonio Brown, that's why it kind of made sense last year. He going to New England for a sec because Tom Brady is a grown-up. He doesn't things get to him as much. He's not outspoken. Same with Russell Wilson. He's not outspoken. He's not a big personality. He's a grown-up. He gets it. We'll see about that. But out of the two, I go Seattle over Baltimore. Excuse me. So going from the NFL football news, going to some basketball news. So, excuse me. So over the last couple days, many NBA players have announced that they will opt out of this NBA reunited season or coming back season resumed basically next month. And among the few, Avery Bradley from the Lakers, Lily Claude-Stein of the Mavericks, Trevor Ariza from the Trailblazers, and David Burns of the Wizards. Now, the Trailblazers because Trevor Ariza is on the Trailblazers and David Burns is on the Wizards. Those are two teams that are right now out of the mix for the playoff spot, but are still eligible to play. Nonetheless, it kind of makes sense. I mean, if you're a team that's eligible, but still has a big hill to climb in order to make the playoffs, I don't see any reason to have to play. Whereas Avery Bradley, who's on the Lakers, and Stein, who's on the Mavericks, those teams are playoff bound no matter what in the West. But at the same time, I can understand Bradley's situation. He has a young kid, so I imagine why he had. So speaking of the Lakers, they signed J.R. Smith to help because the loss of Avery Bradley. Excuse me, my mouth's like F, but yeah, especially for the bench to help out J.R. for the Lakers. And also staying with the NBA, the Nets, they did sign Tyler Johnson, who is a veteran. He has scored about 13 points a game. They are playoff bound in the East currently, but the Wizards could very well take their spot if they're not careful, even though the Wizards are been kind of irrelevant the past couple of years. But nonetheless, go for the Nets. Keep up with depth. I mean, Kyrie should be healthy. Well, that's what I'll say about the Nets. If KD, because apparently he's healthy, but apparently he won't rush back, which good for him and the Nets. But if KD was playing this resumed season, then obviously they would be a favorite because currently they're in line to face the Raptors in the first round if the standings stay put. But nonetheless, good for the Nets. Vince Carter retired. Now, he has played for many years. I believe 18 years. Last he played for the Hawks. Most notably, I remember him playing against or playing for the Raptors. I remember was always good with dunks in his prime. He could probably still dunk, just not as actively. But Vince Carter had a good career. I wouldn't say as good as Dirk, but still good. Good player. Remember him. And on the opening night, the reopening night for the NBA on July 30th, the two games were announced for the opening night. The July 30th reopening will be headlined by Jazz Pelicans, who are both currently in the playoff mix in the West, as well with the Lakers and the Clippers, who are currently number 1 and number 2 in the West. The Pelicans are outside looking in. They're very well in the mix, but they're still on the outside looking in with the Grizzlies at 8, but they could very well. The team I see that can do the most damage, it's on the outside looking in. The teams that are in the hunt basically in the West is the Pelicans. I mean, I like the Spurs, obviously. They're well coached. There's a well run organization. There's the Suns. I like Devin Booker. There's Trailblazers, obviously, there but yeah. And also the Kings, but I choose the Pelicans over all those teams. Next, the MLB is back. For all you baseball fans, I know a few that miss baseball and miss going to a baseball game. They probably won't be able to go to a baseball game for a while, but they miss baseball. And it's coming back. July 24th. And next week, spring training starts, which is good for all you baseball fans. Now, obviously, I kind of miss baseball as well. Even if there's no fans in attendance, I don't mind because baseball is baseball. So no one can really complain about that. If I had to choose, well, it's a 60-game season, so a short season, which makes sense because you don't want really cold baseball. I mean, you like cold football and cold basketball, or it's not really cold because it's inside, but still, you get what I mean. Baseball, I mean, I like the Mets, so unlikely they're going to win at all, but I miss Mets baseball. I got confused with Nets there, excuse me. I do think the Yankees have a really good chance of winning it all this year. They were close last year. Obviously, they lost the close one with the Astros, but I think they really have a good chance this year. I mean, obviously, there's the Red Sox will still be there, the Dodgers will still be there. We'll see how it goes, but can't wait to see baseball again. Yes, I'm going to cover baseball as well among the other sports I cover on this podcast. And last but not least, the recap of the fight night the other night between Dustin Poirier, or headlined by Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker. First of all, if you're a cornerman in the UFC or cornerman for the MMA in general, you're like, what? Why? Because in the co-main event, it was Mike Perry versus Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall came out with his cornerman. Mike Perry came out with who? His girlfriend. Yes, his girlfriend. Now, it's interesting because Mike Perry's talked about in the past, he talked about he's been irritated with cornermen, been kind of iffy while he's been in the cage fighting. I mean, he needed to change the scenery, and he did a really good job, probably his best performance, having his girlfriend in his corner. Nothing but his girlfriend. Now, it's interesting. It was funny but at the same time good for Mike Perry and his girlfriend. Well, she didn't have to say much. He basically said he didn't know what to do. He just had to relax, do it, and he did. So good for Mike Perry. And the main event, boy, was it a good one. Dan Hooker, who been on a tear in the lightweight division, and Dustin Poirier, who coming off his title unification loss to Khabib in Abu Dhabi, was disappointing, but this fight did not disappoint, and Poirier didn't either. This was back and forth, takedowns oriented, stand up, both respectfully. Hooker had a cut over his eyelid. Man, that was brutal. They both landed and both stood up. I don't think I saw one knockdown in that fight. So kudos to both chins and both heart. Poirier experience mattered, and in the later rounds that showed he had more left in tank. He poured it on in the later rounds because it was a close fight. And I mean, Hooker, it's crazy thing, they're both the same age, basically. Well, I think Poirier is just 1 year older than Hooker. Still, they're both young in their fight careers. Poirier said he wants to fight till 35. So this sets him up for prime fights. Hopefully get back in the title picture. I would love to see him fight El Kukui. That's been Tony Ferguson. That's been a fight that's been brewing for a while. I would love to see that. Both came out brutal in their last fights. Obviously, Ferguson for Gaethje. That would be a really good fight. And obviously, you have Khabib versus Gaethje in September. So I think that would line up those two fights nicely. And hopefully, you get. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing another fight between Gaethje and Dustin Poirier, but still should be interesting. Where does Hooker go? I mean, no shame in that fight. It was basically the same as, well, the Barboza fight. He was just overwhelmed by the speed and the velocity of Barboza's kicks, and no shame in that. Here, it was just, well, it was also his toughness and his grit, but it was experience that won the fight for Poirier, because this was only Dan Hooker's second main event, and I mean, experience, it showed. What's the next fight for him? I would love to see him fight Charles Oliveira. If not, I'm not sure. Maybe a fight with Kevin Lee. We'll see how both those two line up. But no shame in either fighter. Both came up to work, and Poirier came out on top. That's just how it goes sometimes in MMA. Good for Poirier, Hooker, and apparently it was fight of the night. So good for both of them. Alright. Yeah, so that was basically it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I basically covered all I need to cover in my notes. Covered, like I said, the MLB returning. The NFL news. Vince Carter's retirement. I covered it all. So thank you all for joining. Thank you all that joined me today. Hope you all have a good day, and I'll be back Thursday with my AEW review for Firefest Night 1. That's. Hope you guys just enjoyed this podcast. Hope you all have a great rest of your days, and I'll see you guys all on Thursday.